Cosmic horror networks broadcast human war documentaries because they terrify all species. Had worked at the Void Between Stars Broadcasting Corporation for 17 cycles, and in all that time, nothing had ever surprised him. His job was simple: monitor data streams, check transmission logs, and make sure the cosmic horror content reached the right dimensional frequencies. It was boring work, which suited him perfectly. Liked boring. That's why the numbers on his screen made no sense. He stared at the viewership metrics for the third time, his sensory tendrils quivering with confusion. Someone or something was pulling massive amounts of bandwidth from an unauthorized channel. The traffic was enormous, bigger than anything he'd ever seen. Bigger than the season finale of Nightmares from the Dark Corners, or even the special broadcast of The Heat Death Approaches. Ran a trace on the signal. It took him down through layers of encoded data, through firewalls that shouldn't exist, and into a he didn't recognize. The source was listed as external feed 4847 Terra. He'd never heard of it. He opened the feed. At first he thought there was an error. The video showed a flat landscape covered in mud. Small creatures moved through the mud and realized they were people. Bipedal, symmetrical, clearly intelligent. They wore crude protective gear and carried primitive projectile weapons. One of them was writing something on paper while sitting in a hole in the ground. Another was eating food from a metal container. A third was staring at a small photograph. Then the bombardment started. Watched as explosives rained down on the position. The ground erupted in fountains of dirt and fire. The creatures screamed and ran and died. Some of them kept fighting. Some of them went to help their wounded companions even as more explosives fell around them. One of them, badly injured, used his last moments to push another out of the way of incoming fire. The video ended. A title card appeared in 17 languages didn't recognize and one he did. The one he understood said, "The Psalm, 1916, Human Conflict Designation, World War I." Felt something cold settle in his core. He'd seen a lot of horror content in his career. He'd watched civilizations fall and stars die. He'd seen cosmic entities devour reality itself. But something about this was different. Something about the way those creatures had acted, the way they'd helped each other even while killing each other, made his sensory tendrils curl tight against his body. He checked the viewership numbers again. 40 billion beings were watching this feed right now. 40 billion. Did what any reasonable employee would do. He reported it to his supervisor. His supervisor, a cloud of sentient gas, named or didn't believe him at first. Then or looked at the numbers. Then or looked at the content. Then or started making noises that indicated severe distress. Where is this coming from? Or demanded. I traced it to the Whispering Network, said, but they don't have authorization to broadcast through our infrastructure. The Whispering Network, or as particles vibrated with something that might have been fear. They're broadcasting human content. You know what humans are? Asked. Or didn't answer directly. Instead, his supervisor pulled up a file that was marked with 17 different warning labels and 3 symbols that meant, "Do not open during FEDING HOURS." Read this, or said, then we're going to have a meeting. Read the file. It was an intelligence report about a planet called Earth, located in an unremarkable system in an outer spiral arm of a fairly standard galaxy. The planet was the report said, with extreme temperature variations, dangerous predators, and frequent natural disasters. The dominant species had evolved as persistence hunters, capable of tracking prey for days until the prey literally died of exhaustion. But that wasn't the concerning part. The concerning part was the section labeled Cultural Development. According to the report, humans had spent their entire recorded history in a state of near-constant warfare. They fought over resources, territory, ideology, religion, and sometimes for reasons nobody could adequately explain. They developed thousands of ways to kill each other, ranging from simple clubs to weapons that could incinerate entire cities. And yet, they also produced art, philosophy, music, literature. They built hospitals and schools. They created systems of law and justice. They fell in love, raised children, and cared for their elderly. They did all of this while simultaneously perfecting the art of organized violence. The report included a quote from a human philosopher, "Man is wolf to man." But it also included another quote, "For all that has been, thanks. For all that will be, yes." "Put down the file. I don't understand." "Nobody does," Or said. "That's why they're watching." The meeting happened 3 days later. Found himself in a conference room with 12 other entities from different enforcement and regulatory agencies. The Whispering Network had been invited, but hadn't confirmed attendance. They attended anyway. The spokesperson for the Whispering Network didn't walk into the room so much as manifest within it. Felt his perception shift painfully as the being adjusted itself to fit within normal three-dimensional space. Looking directly at it caused a mild headache and a strong urge to think about mathematics. "Thank you for coming," said Hal, the head of the Broadcasting Standards Committee. She was a crystalline being who communicated through light pulses. "We have some questions about your recent programming choices." "I assume this is about the humans," the spokesperson said. Its voice sounded like it was coming from inside's head and also from very far away at the same time. "You're broadcasting content from a precontact species," Hal said, "without authorization, through our infrastructure, to an audience of billions." "The content is freely available," the spokesperson said. "Humans recorded their own wars extensively. They broadcast them. They archived them. They teach them to their children in institutions of learning. We merely curated and distributed what they themselves chose to preserve." "But why," Or asked, "why is anyone watching this?" The spokesperson did something that might have been a smile, though it was hard to tell. "Because it's terrifying." Thought about the video he'd seen. The mud, the bombardment, the creature writing a letter. "I've seen your regular programming," he said quietly. "You broadcast content from entities that exist in non-Euclidean space. You show civilizations being consumed by things that can't be named. How is human warfare more terrifying than that?" The spokesperson turned its attention to. The headache got worse. "Because those other horrors are incomprehensible. Human warfare is perfectly comprehensible. That's what makes it terrifying." "I don't understand," said. "Let me show you." The spokesperson gestured, and a new video appeared on the conference room display. It showed a human city being bombed. Buildings collapsed. Fires burned. People died in the streets. But in between the bombing runs, the survivors emerged from shelters. They cleared rubble. They rescued the wounded. They sang songs together. An orchestra performed in the ruins of a concert hall. Teachers held classes in the basement of a destroyed school. A woman got married while air raid sirens wailed in the distance. "This is from their Second World War," the spokesperson said. "Approximately 27 cycles after the first one. You'd think they would have learned." "But they kept living," Hal said softly. "Even while dying, they kept living." "Exactly," the spokesperson said. "Every other species we've encountered makes a choice. They become peaceful, sublimating their violent instincts into ritual and sport, or they become warlike, dedicating themselves to conquest and domination. Humans do both, simultaneously. They know they're capable of terrible things. They've recorded and studied every terrible thing they've ever done. And then they choose to also be kind, to also create beauty, to also love." The room was silent. "That's not horror," Or said finally. "That's just complicated." "Is it?" the spokesperson asked. "Tell me, what do you feel when you watch a human soldier run into enemy fire to rescue a wounded companion? When you watch them write poetry about their fears while sitting in a trench? When you watch them celebrate holidays in the middle of a war zone? Do you feel inspired? Or do you feel terrified that a species like that exists in the universe?" Realized he was trembling. He thought about the creature with the photograph, the one who died pushing another out of danger, the one who'd been writing a letter that would never be sent. "You're making money from their suffering," Hal said. "We're showing the universe what's coming," the spokesperson replied. "Humans are close to faster-than-light travel, perhaps another 50 of their years. When they join the galactic community, everyone will want to know what they are. We're simply providing that information in advance." "By selling it as horror entertainment," said. "Is there a better genre?" the spokesperson asked. "We have footage from their so-called Christmas truce, enemies climbing out of trenches to sing together, to play games, to exchange gifts. Then they went back to killing each other the next day. Tell me what genre that belongs to." Nobody had an answer. The spokesperson began to dematerialize. "We'll continue broadcasting. Humans made this content public. They want their history known. They teach it to their children so they remember what they're capable of. We're simply extending that education to the rest of the universe. You're welcome to shut us down, of course. But ask yourself, would you rather everyone learned about humans from us or from first contact?" The being vanished completely, leaving behind only a faint smell of ozone and existential dread. Went back to his station after the meeting. The viewership numbers had climbed to 60 billion. The Whispering Network had just released a new series called Humanity, the sequel Wars. The description promised footage of conflicts even more devastating than the First World War. He opened his communications panel and started a new report. It was supposed to be a standard log entry about irregular broadcasts and unauthorized content, but instead, he found himself writing something else. "I don't know if humans are coming to the stars," he typed, "but I think the Whispering Network is right. We need to know about them, not because they're dangerous, though they clearly are, but because they're something we've never encountered before. A species that understands its own darkness and chooses light anyway, or sometimes chooses darkness again, or chooses both. I don't understand them. I don't think anyone does, but I can't stop watching." He deleted the last sentence. Then he wrote it again. Then he sent the report and pulled up another episode. The episode was titled Medics. It showed humans running toward gunfire to save the wounded, not just their own wounded. Everyone's wounded, even their enemies' wounded. Watched and trembled and understood why billions of beings across 17 dimensions were doing the same thing. This wasn't entertainment. This was a warning. Humans were coming, and nobody knew if that was good news or the most terrifying thing that had ever happened to the universe. 3 months passed and became something of an expert on humans. He didn't mean to. It just happened. When you spend every work cycle monitoring the most popular content in 17 dimensions, you start to learn things. He learned that humans measured time in strange ways, years and months and days based on their planet's rotation and orbit. He learned they had thousands of languages, but seemed to enjoy learning each other's languages almost as much as they enjoyed fighting. He learned they kept pets, animals that served no practical purpose except to make them happy. He learned they cried at stories, even though they knew the stories weren't real. Mostly, he learned that human warfare was even more complicated than he'd thought. The Galactic Ethics Board had called for a formal hearing. The Whispering Network's broadcasts had become too popular to ignore. Species that had never shown interest in human affairs were now completely obsessed. The board wanted answers. They wanted regulations. They wanted someone to explain why cosmic horror entities were making fortunes broadcasting human suffering. Had been summoned as a witness. He discovered the broadcasts after all. His testimony would be important. He sat in the waiting area outside the hearing chamber, reviewing his notes on a data pad. Next to him sat a being he'd never seen before. It looked like a mathematical equation given physical form, all angles and ratios and impossible geometry. It introduced itself as a member of the Paradox Collective. "Are you here for the hearing?" asked. "I'm testifying," said. Its voice sounded like two numbers being divided. I've been watching the human broadcasts. Everyone has said. Yes, but I'm a subscriber to the premium service. I pay extra for the unedited footage and historical context. Shifted uncomfortably, its angles rearranging themselves. I've watched 300 hours of human warfare in the past month. Why asked? Was quiet for a moment, because I needed to understand. My species processes information through probability matrices. We see all possible outcomes of every situation and choose the optimal path, but humans don't work that way. They choose suboptimal paths constantly. They sacrifice themselves for others. They fight for abstract concepts like honor and freedom. They make decisions that reduce their own survival chances, and yet they've survived. They've thrived. How? Didn't have an answer. He'd asked himself the same question dozens of times. The hearing chamber doors opened, and they were called inside. The chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate beings of all sizes and dimensional requirements. The ethics board sat in a semicircle at the front, 7 members representing 7 different galactic regions. Hal was there, her crystalline form reflecting light across the walls. So was Or, still appearing as a cloud of nervous gas. The spokesperson for the Whispering Network was already present, manifesting as a shadow that hurt to look at directly. The hearing began with formal statements. Hal explained the concern. An entity was profiting from the suffering of a precontact species without that species' knowledge or consent. The ethics board needed to determine if this violated galactic law. The Whispering Network spokesperson stood to defend itself. Or rather, the shadow deepened in a way that indicated standing. We have broken no laws, it said. The content we broadcast was created by humans themselves. They recorded their wars. They archived the footage. They made it publicly available. Many of their wars were broadcast in real time on their own communication networks. We simply curated this freely available material and presented it to a wider audience. You're selling their trauma, one of the board members said. This was a being made of compressed starlight. That seems ethically questionable. Is it? The spokesperson asked. Humans sell their own trauma constantly. They make films about their wars. They write books. They create memorials and museums. They teach warfare in their schools. They've built an entire educational and entertainment industry around remembering and analyzing their conflicts. We're doing the same thing, just for a different audience. But they don't know you're doing it, Hal said. Does that matter? The spokesperson asked. If someone publishes a book and doesn't know someone else is reading it, does that violate the author's rights? Humans made their history public. We're simply publicizing it further. Let's discuss what you're actually broadcasting, Or said. We've reviewed your content. You're not providing educational analysis. You're marketing it as horror entertainment. Because that's what it is, the spokesperson said simply. Horror is subjective. What terrifies one species enlightens another. But I challenge you to watch human warfare and tell me it's not horrifying. That's not the point, said. Isn't it? The spokesperson gestured and the chamber's main display activated. Let me show you our most popular episode. This is from a human conflict called World War II. A ship called the Laconia was sunk by a submarine. The submarine surfaced to rescue survivors. While the rescue was happening, an aircraft attacked them. The submarine commander continued rescuing people even under fire. Some of his crew died protecting human survivors. Do you understand what I'm saying? Enemies saved each other. Then other enemies attacked them for saving each other. Then they kept saving each other anyway. The display showed grainy footage, humans in the water, a submarine pulling them aboard, an explosion, chaos, and through it all people helping people even when it made no tactical sense. That's not possible, whispered. The probability of sustained altruistic behavior under combat conditions approaches 0. Survival instinct should override cooperative impulses. And yet, the spokesperson said. The board watched in silence, had seen this footage before, but it still made him uncomfortable. The humans on that submarine could have dived, could have saved themselves. They chose differently. "Let's hear from our witnesses," Hal said finally. "You discovered these broadcasts. What's your assessment?" Stood, his sensory tendrils were trembling, but he forced himself to speak clearly. "I think the Whispering Network is right. This is horror content, but it's a new kind of horror. Most horror is about the unknown, about things we can't understand. Human warfare is about things we understand perfectly. Resources, territory, ideology. The horror comes from watching them do it anyway, from watching them know better and still choose violence, and from watching them choose kindness at the same time." "Explain," said. Pulled up his own files. "I've been studying human content for 3 months. I've watched footage of their wars, but I've also watched their other material, films, music, literature, and they're always doing both. A human soldier writes poetry about missing his family. A human city under bombardment holds concerts. A human medic treats enemy wounded. They contain multitudes. They contradict themselves constantly, and they're aware of it. They have a saying, 'Man's heart is in conflict with itself.' They know their paradoxes. They teach it to their children." "That's not horror," Orr said. "That's just cognitive dissonance." "Is it?" asked. "You said your species sees all probable outcomes and chooses optimally. What's the optimal response to war?" "Avoid it," said immediately. "Or if unavoidable, commit fully to victory through overwhelming force." "Humans do neither," said. "They fight wars with rules. They created conventions about how to conduct warfare. They banned certain weapons as too cruel. They defined war crimes. They built systems to punish people who violated these rules. And they did all of this while still fighting. They made warfare ethical. Do you understand how terrifying that is? They didn't reject violence. They civilized it." The chamber was quiet. "Let me tell you about the Christmas truce," the spokesperson said. The display changed, showing humans in muddy trenches. "December 1914, the middle of their First World War. Enemies on both sides spontaneously stopped fighting. They climbed out of their trenches. They sang carols together. They played football. They exchanged gifts. They buried their dead together. They showed each other pictures of their families. And then, when their commanders ordered them to resume the war, they did. They went back to killing each other. Some of them apologized to the people they'd been celebrating with before shooting at them. The footage played, humans laughing together, shaking hands, sharing food. The display cut to the next day, the same humans firing weapons at each other." "That's impossible," said again. "That violates basic behavioral logic." "And yet," the spokesperson said. Watched the board members. He could see the discomfort in their postures, their colors, their quantum states. They were all feeling what he'd felt when he first discovered the broadcasts. The existential unease of realizing a species like humanity existed. "I want to testify," said suddenly, standing up. "I need to explain what this means." Hal gestured permission. Moved to the center of the chamber. Its geometric form shifted, trying to find the right configuration to express complex thoughts. "My species has existed for 4 million years. We've encountered hundreds of intelligent species. We've seen civilizations rise and fall. We've documented behavioral patterns across billions of individuals, and we've never seen anything like humans." "In what way?" asked. "Every species we've studied falls on a spectrum," said. "Violent to peaceful, selfish to altruistic, logical to emotional, and every species moves along these spectrums as they evolve. They start in the middle and gradually shift toward optimization. Peaceful species become more peaceful. Logical species become more logical. It's a universal pattern of development." "But not humans," said quietly. "But not humans," confirmed. "Humans don't move along the spectrum. They exist at multiple points simultaneously. They're violent and peaceful, selfish and altruistic, logical and emotional, and they don't see this as a problem to solve. They see it as the human condition. They've written millions of words of philosophy about it. They make art about it. It's central to their identity." "So they're psychologically unstable," Orr said. "No," said. That's what makes them terrifying. They're not unstable. This is their stable state, their paradoxes, and they're comfortable with it. A human can kill in the morning and cry about it in the evening. A human can love their enemy while shooting at them. A human can destroy a city and then rebuild it more beautiful than before. And they do all of this while maintaining complex societies, advancing technology, and creating sublime art. The spokesperson spoke again. I've been broadcasting to 17 dimensions for 6 million years. I've shown audiences the heat death of universes. I've shown them gods going mad. I've shown them civilizations consuming themselves. Nothing has generated the viewership that human warfare generates. Do you know why? Tell us, Hal said. Because all those other horrors are external. They're things that happen to you. Human warfare is internal. It's a choice they make, again and again, knowing the cost, knowing they could choose differently, and then sometimes they do choose differently, and then they choose violence again. They're a species at war with themselves, and they've been fighting that war for their entire existence. That's not cosmic horror, that's existential horror, and it's far more terrifying. The hearing continued for another 3 hours. Witnesses, experts analyzed footage. The board deliberated. In the end, they found no legal grounds to shut down the broadcasts. Humans had made their history public. The Whispering Network was simply redistributing public domain material to a new audience. But Hal added a requirement. The broadcasts had to include context, educational materials, human perspectives on their own history. The Whispering Network couldn't just show the violence. They had to show the whole picture. The spokesperson agreed immediately. We've been planning that already, it said. In fact, we've discovered that humans send broadcasts into space. Radio, television, data streams. They've been telling the universe about themselves for over a century. We're adding that material to our catalog. Songs, films, scientific papers, art, everything. We're calling it Humanity, the Complete Collection. Will anyone watch that? Or asked. Your audience comes for the horror. They'll watch, the spokesperson said, because the horror isn't separate from the art, it's all connected. That's what makes humans incomprehensible. They're not monsters occasionally being kind. They're not angels occasionally being violent. They're both always simultaneously. And yes, people will watch, because they need to understand what's coming. What do you mean, what's coming? Asked. The spokesperson's shadow seemed to smile. Humans will achieve faster-than-light travel soon. Our projections say within 30 years. When that happens, they'll join the galactic community. Everyone will meet them eventually. Better to meet them through broadcasts first. Better to understand what they are before they arrive in person. Felt cold. He'd been thinking of humans as distant curiosities, historical subjects. It hadn't occurred to him that they'd be neighbors soon. How do you know their technological timeline? Hal asked. Because we've been watching them in real time too, the spokesperson said. Not just historical footage, current events. They've been broadcasting into space for decades. We've been receiving and recording everything. Their news, their entertainment, their arguments about how to build a better world. Everything. Show us, Hal said. The display changed. It showed a human city at night, lights stretching to the horizon, cars moving on streets, planes in the sky, humans going about their lives. The footage was recent, maybe days old. This is New York City, the spokesperson said. Population 8 million. They've built thousands of cities like this. And do you know what they're doing in these cities? They're debating, constantly, about everything, about war and peace, about justice and mercy, about how to balance individual freedom with collective good. They argue with each other constantly, and they've built systems that let them argue without killing each other, most of the time. Most of the time, or repeated nervously. They're not perfect, the spokesperson said. They still have conflicts, violence, injustice, but they're trying. They're aware of their flaws and actively working to address them. That's new behavior for them. For most of their history, they just accepted that warfare was inevitable. Now they're asking if it has to be. That's why we're broadcasting everything, because humans are changing, evolving, and the galaxy needs to see that too. The hearing ended with a strange mood in the chamber. No laws had been broken. No action would be taken. But everyone left feeling like something important had happened, like they'd learned something they couldn't unlearn. Walked out with, they stood in the corridor, watching other beings file past. "Do you think humans know," asked, "that we're watching them?" "I don't think so," said. "They send signals into space hoping someone will receive them, but I doubt they know we're analyzing their wars as horror entertainment." "Someone should tell them," said. "Maybe," said, "or maybe we should wait, let them come to us, see what they do when they arrive." "What do you think they'll do?" Thought about the footage he'd watched, the violence and the kindness, the destruction and the art, the contradictions that somehow made sense together. "I have no idea," he said honestly. "I don't think anyone does. That's what makes them terrifying." He went back to his station. The viewership numbers had reached 100 billion beings across 17 dimensions. The Whispering Network had announced a new live broadcast event. Humanity reaches for the stars, the first FTL test flight. The scheduled date was 30 years away. Marked it in his calendar. He had a feeling everyone in the universe would be watching. 29 years, 11 months, and 16 days later, stood on an observation platform that shouldn't exist. The station floated in deep space, positioned along the trajectory where human ships were expected to emerge if their FTL drive worked. Thousands of vessels from hundreds of species surrounded the station. Everyone wanted to witness first contact. The Whispering Network had sold broadcasting rights to 47 dimensions. The viewership projections were staggering. Conservative estimates suggested 3 trillion beings would watch the moment humans entered the galactic stage. 3 trillion beings waiting to see if the species from the horror broadcasts would arrive ready for war. Had aged in the years since he discovered those first broadcasts. His species didn't age visibly, but he felt different, older, changed. He'd spent 3 decades studying humanity and he still didn't understand them. He'd watched hundreds of hours of footage, their wars, their peace treaties, their art, their arguments, their laughter, their tears. He'd watched them land on their own moon, build space stations, send robots to other planets in their system. They were slow compared to galactic standards, but they were persistent, always reaching, always exploring. Next to him stood the mathematical entity from the hearing all those years ago. Had become something of a human specialist too. They'd written papers together, given lectures, tried to explain the inexplicable to beings who wanted simple answers. "Are you nervous?" asked. "Yes," admitted you. "My species doesn't experience nervousness. We experience uncertainty about probable outcomes. Currently, my uncertainty is at maximum levels." "That's nervousness," said. "I suppose it is." The observation platform was crowded. Hal was there, her crystalline form positioned near the main viewport, or hovered nearby, his gas cloud compressed with tension. Blazed in the corner, starlight poolsing anxiously. The Whispering Network spokesperson manifested as a shadow along the wall, its presence making everyone's headaches worse. "They're late," someone said. A being made of crystal harmonics named. She'd become famous for her lectures on human unpredictability. "Humans are always late," said. "It's apparently a cultural trait. They have expressions about it. Better late than never. Fashionably late. Running on human time." "How can an entire species be chronologically challenged?" asked. "Because they're human," said. "They don't optimize, they improvise." An alarm sounded. Sensors across the observation platform detected something. A distortion in space. Energy readings spiking. Every being in the station turned toward the viewport. Space tore open. Not elegantly, not smoothly. It ripped like fabric being forced apart by something that didn't quite fit through the hole. Light spilled out, the wrong color, the wrong frequency. And then a ship emerged. It was smaller than expected. Compared to the massive vessels of the galactic races, the human ship looked fragile, cylindrical, with what appeared to be primitive fusion drives and a bulky FTL assembly that looked like it had been welded on as an afterthought. The hull was marked with text in several human languages and symbols that probably meant something to humans. The largest text read, "Resilience." "They named it," Hal said softly. "Of course they named it." "All ships have designations," Orr said. "No, they named it," Hal said. "Like a person, like something they care about. Resilience, that's very human." The Resilience drifted for a moment, engines quiet. Imagine the crew inside, seeing a galaxy full of vessels they hadn't expected, realizing they weren't alone, realizing they'd never been alone. Then the ship's communications array lit up. A transmission, broad spectrum, designed to reach everyone. A voice spoke in English, translated automatically by universal language protocols. It was a female human, her voice steady despite what must have been tremendous stress. "This is Captain Maria of the Earth vessel Resilience to any listening vessels. We come in peace. We are humanity's first faster-than-light ship. We hope this moment marks the beginning of friendship between our species and any others we encounter. We extend greetings from Earth and from all humanity." The speech continued. Basic information about Earth, about humanity, about their hopes for peaceful contact. It was simple, straightforward, exactly what any species might say during first contact. And the galaxy watched, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the violence that the broadcasts had promised, waiting for humans to be what the whispering network had shown them. A merchant vessel moved closer to the Resilience. It was a standard trading ship from a species called the Venturi, known for being friendly and non-threatening. A test, realized. Someone had volunteered to approach the humans first. The Venturi ship's captain opened a channel. "This is Captain and of the trading vessel Bright Prophet. Welcome to the larger galaxy, humans. Your message was received. We would be honored to facilitate your introduction to the galactic community." There was a pause, could imagine the human crew debating, checking weapons, scanning the vessel, making decisions about trust. "Thank you, Captain N," Captain said. Frankly, we're a bit overwhelmed. We didn't expect to find so many ships here. We'd be grateful for any guidance you can provide." "You expected to be alone?" and asked. "We hoped we weren't," said. "But hope and expectation are different things. We've been listening for so long, sending signals, wondering if anyone was out there. And now we know. Now we see you, all of you. It's a bit hard to process." "I can imagine," and said. "If your crew needs time to adjust, we understand." "Actually," said, and could hear something in her voice. Warmth, humor. "We have someone injured on your ship. Our medical scanners detected. I'm not sure what species, but they're hurt. Do you need medical assistance? Our doctor is available if our biology is compatible enough to help." Silence fell across the observation platform. "What?" or whispered. Anne's voice came back confused. "You're offering medical aid. You just arrived, you don't know us." "You're hurt," said simply. "If we can help, we should. That's just what we do." Watched as the Resilience maneuvered closer to the Venturi ship, carefully, slowly, not aggressively, and he realized what he was seeing. The same thing from the broadcasts, the same impossible choice. Humans helping even when it didn't make tactical sense. The Whispering Network spokesperson spoke quietly. "Viewership just hit 4 trillion. "They're terrified," Hal said. "No," the spokesperson said. "They're confused. They were expecting warriors. They're seeing this instead." Over the next hour, watched as the galaxy met humanity. Captain's crew helped with the injured Venturi crew member, a chemical burn that their medical technology could treat. Other ships approached, slowly, carefully. Each time the humans responded with friendliness and curiosity. They asked questions, shared information about Earth, expressed wonder at meeting alien species. They didn't fire weapons, didn't make demands, didn't threaten. They were kind. And the galaxy watching the broadcast didn't know what to do with that. "This doesn't make sense," said. "We've watched them fight, we know what they're capable of." "Yes," said, "we do, and they know we've been watching." "What do you mean?" Pointed at his data pad. "I've been monitoring their communications. They're talking about the broadcasts. They knew. The Whispering Network has been sending signals to Earth too. Humans have been receiving the broadcasts of their own history. They've been watching themselves the same way we've been watching them." "For how long?" "Years, maybe decades. They knew we were out here. They knew we'd seen their wars, and they came anyway, leading with kindness." A new communication channel opened. This time, it was directed specifically at the observation platform, at the gathering of officials and experts who'd been studying humanity. "This is Captain," the human said. "I'm told there's an observation platform nearby with representatives from various galactic organizations. Is that correct?" Hal activated her communications. "This is Hal of the Galactic Ethics Board. That's correct, Captain. We're here to observe first contact." "I see," said. "Then I assume you've been watching the broadcasts, the ones showing our history, our wars." Hal hesitated. "Yes, we have." "Good," said. "Then you know what we are, what we've been, what we're capable of. I'm glad we don't have to hide that because it's important that you understand. We're not perfect. Our history is full of violence and mistakes and choices we regret. We've fought each other, hurt each other, destroyed each other. All of that is true." She paused. "But it's not the whole truth. We've also built, created, loved, helped, saved each other. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies. Sometimes we're our own greatest champions. We contain contradictions. We're messy, complicated. Sometimes we don't even understand ourselves." "Then why are you here?" Hal asked. "Why risk first contact knowing how you'll be perceived?" "Because we know what we are," said, "and we choose to be better than our worst moments. We're not here to conquer, we're here to meet you, learn from you, maybe teach you something too. We're here because staying home meant choosing fear. Coming here meant choosing hope. And humans are very good at hope, even when it's not logical." Felt something shift in his perception. He'd spent 30 years watching humans through broadcasts, studying them like specimens, treating them like puzzles to solve. But words made him realize something. Humans weren't puzzles. They were people. Complicated, contradictory people who knew exactly what they were and chose to try anyway. The spokesperson spoke again. "Captain, this is a representative of the Whispering Network. We've been broadcasting your history to the galaxy. What would you like to tell the beings who've been watching?" Was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was gentle but firm. "I tell them we see them, we know they're watching, we know they've seen our darkest moments, and we're not ashamed of our history. We're not proud of all of it, but we're not ashamed. Because that history made us who we are. It taught us what we don't want to be. And every day we try to be better than we were yesterday. Sometimes we succeed. Sometimes we fail, but we keep trying." "And if they're afraid of you?" the spokesperson asked. "Then we understand," said. "Fear is reasonable. We've given the universe plenty of reasons to be cautious. But fear doesn't have to mean hostility. We can be afraid and still choose to understand each other. We can be uncertain and still choose friendship. That's what humans do. We feel everything all at once and we choose anyway." The broadcast reached 6 trillion beings. Watched the metrics scroll across his screen. 6 trillion beings across 47 dimensions watching one human woman explain her species to the universe. An invitation came through. The Galactic Council wanted to meet with Captain. A formal first contact session. Agreed immediately, and the Resilience was guided to the observation platform. When the airlock opened and humans stepped onto the platform for the first time, saw them with his own eyes. They were smaller than he'd expected, softer, fragile-looking. Captain wore a blue uniform with insignia that probably meant something to humans. Her skin was brown, her hair black, pulled back in a practical style. She smiled when she saw the gathered representatives. She smiled. After everything. After knowing the galaxy had watched her species tear itself apart, she smiled like meeting aliens was the most natural thing in the world. "Hello," she said. "This is extraordinary, all of you. This moment, I don't have adequate words, so I'll just say thank you for waiting, thank you for being here, thank you for giving us a chance." Hal moved forward. "Captain, on behalf of the Galactic Council, welcome. We have many questions." "I imagine you do," said, "and I'll answer whatever I can, but first can I ask you something?" "Of course." "The broadcast showed our wars. Did they show anything else? Did you see our art, our music, our dreams? Did you see us being silly, falling in love, raising children? Did you see us exploring, creating, trying to understand the universe?" Hal hesitated. The broadcasts focused primarily on warfare. That was the most popular content. Nodded slowly. "I thought so. Then we have a lot to share with you, because warfare is part of our story, but it's not our whole story. We're so much more than our worst days, and if you're willing, we'd like to show you." Over the following hours, a strange thing happened. Captain and her crew didn't just answer questions. They told stories. They showed pictures from Earth, mountains and oceans and cities, families and festivals and art. They played music. They explained their philosophies. They talked about their hopes for the future. And the beings who'd spent 30 years watching humans kill each other saw something different. They saw humans laughing, dancing, crying at sad stories, caring for each other, being people. Found himself talking to one of the human crew members, a young man named David who worked as an engineer. David explained how the FTL drive worked, or tried to. It was clear the technology was primitive, barely functional, held together with improvisation and hope. "Weren't you afraid it wouldn't work?" asked. "Terrified," David said cheerfully. "But we tested it hundreds of times, and we believed in our team. Sometimes you have to trust and take the leap." "You could have died." "Yes, but we could also have met aliens. We chose to risk death for the chance at meeting you, for the chance at this conversation. Was it worth it? You tell me. Is this conversation worth dying for?" Thought about it, about 3 decades of watching, about the fear and confusion, about this moment finally understanding. "Yes," he said, "I think it is." As the first contact session concluded, Captain made a request. She wanted to address the broadcasts. The Whispering Network agreed immediately. Captain stood in front of cameras that would beam her words to 47 dimensions, to 6 trillion beings, and she spoke. "My name is Maria. I'm a human from Earth, and I'm told you've been watching us, watching our wars, learning what we're capable of at our worst. I want you to know we've been watching too. We received your broadcasts. We saw ourselves through your eyes. We understood how you must feel, afraid, confused, uncertain about what we are." She paused. "I can't tell you not to be afraid. Fear is a reasonable response to what you've seen, but I can tell you this. We're aware of our capacity for violence. We teach our children about our mistakes so they don't repeat them. We memorialize our wars not to celebrate them but to remember their cost. We know what we are. We've always known. And knowing that, we choose to come to you anyway, not as conquerors, not as warriors, but as neighbors, as friends if you'll have us. We're offering you partnership, cooperation, mutual growth. We have so much to learn from you, and maybe, just maybe, we have something to teach you too. We've learned how to hold contradictions, how to be violent and kind, destructive and creative, afraid and hopeful. We've learned that you don't have to choose one side of yourself. You can be everything all at once. You can acknowledge your darkness and still choose light. So yes, watch our wars, study them, learn from our mistakes, but also watch us dance. Listen to our music, read our poetry, see us at our best too, because we're both, always, and we're comfortable with that. We hope you can be too." The broadcast ended. 6 trillion beings processed what they'd heard, and slowly, across the galaxy, something changed. The terror didn't disappear, but understanding began to grow in its place. stood on the observation platform as the Resilience prepared to depart. Captain approached him before leaving. "You discovered the broadcasts," she said. "I read the reports. You were the first to find them." "Yes," said, "I didn't know what to make of you." "And now?" Considered the question. "I still don't fully understand, but I think that's all right. Maybe understanding isn't the point. Maybe accepting is enough." Smiled. "That's very wise and very human, actually. You'd fit in well on Earth." "Will you come back?" asked. "Oh yes," said. "This is just first contact. We have so much more to share, so much to learn. We're just getting started." She offered her hand, a human gesture of greeting, studied it for a moment, then reached out with a sensory tendril and touched her palm gently. "Welcome to the galaxy, humans," he said. "Thank you for waiting for us," she replied. The Resilience departed, tearing another hole in space with its crude FTL drive. The observation platform slowly emptied as beings returned to their vessels, their worlds, their lives. Everything had changed. Humanity had arrived. Returned to his station. The viewership metrics were still climbing. 8 trillion now. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. The Whispering Network announced its new programming schedule. Humanity Among the Stars, a real-time documentary. They'd follow human exploration, human diplomacy, human integration into galactic society. And yes, probably human conflicts too, because humans wouldn't stop being human just because they joined the galaxy. Approved the broadcasting plan. He'd learned something important over 30 years of watching. You couldn't understand humans by watching just their wars or just their peace. You had to watch everything. The contradictions, the paradoxes, the choices made despite impossible circumstances. He opened a new file and began writing. Not a report this time. A letter, to Captain, to humanity, welcoming them, thanking them, explaining what their arrival had meant to someone who'd spent 30 years afraid of them. He wrote, "You asked if we saw you being silly, falling in love, raising children. We didn't, not at first. We only saw your darkness, but now we're looking for your light, and we're seeing it everywhere. Thank you for being patient with us. Thank you for understanding our fear. Thank you for choosing hope anyway. Welcome home." He sent the message into space, toward Earth, toward a small blue planet that had produced the most terrifying species the universe had ever encountered. Terrifying not because they were violent, but because they were kind despite having every reason not to be. Outside his viewport, ships began to move. Some toward Earth, curious and cautious, some away, still afraid, but all of them changed by what they'd witnessed. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had arrived, bringing their contradictions and their hope and their infuriating refusal to be just one thing. And somehow, impossibly, that seemed exactly right.